this all out in the open. The church hasn't always been a place where entrepreneurs feel understood. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. We're much more alike than we are different. Both of us are driven by mission. Always on, always working, building, doing. Why haven't our similarities pulled us closer together? What could happen if they did?
I had a non-traditional journey into entrepreneurship. I was a primary school teacher, teaching year one in a fairly rough part of town in Nottingham. Sam came to Nottingham to study medicine, so was training to be a doctor. And as part of her training at the end, she gets to go on a medical elective. She chose to go to Kenya, and I was able to get time off school. So she was working in a hospital there voluntarily, and I was there teaching voluntarily. This was pre-kids, so we're thinking, maybe God's going to call us overseas for mission work, teacher, doctor, perfect missionary material. So we had a great time working there. We really enjoyed it, met loads of amazing people, great experiences, but we didn't feel called by God to be missionaries. It was actually at the end, we went to visit a church. So what we saw there was a church that was able to reach out into all kinds of people in the surrounding area. And they were blessing them, they were employing them, they were building a police station, a hospital. I'd never seen a church like it. It would almost be impossible to be in that town and not know of the church. It was really relevant, and that in a way that church in the UK in the 21st century is decreasing in its relevance. We went there thinking, what can we give in the future? But actually came away with being inspired that a church could get involved in the community, society, and business and actually be a wealth creator and make a huge difference. There were people who I knew who needed a job. Their life had changed, like they'd come to know Jesus, but they had too much spare time on their hands. They still living in the same area, surrounded by the same bad influences, didn't have enough money, they needed a job. And the church was full of people like me who were really well-intentioned, really well-meaning, would love to help, but actually no employers. So there was no one that could say, I will give you a job. So getting frustrated with God that wasn't the case, meant me crying out to him and then feeling like he actually spoke back saying, well, you do it then. So that's what I did.
I think it's not something that people think of as a central part of the church's mission, but actually it's throughout the whole of Scripture. So right at the start of Scripture, you've got this sense of Adam and Eve being commissioned by God to look after the garden, to work the garden, to tend. And then right at the end of Scripture, in the new heaven and the new earth, we're told that we're going to be working and doing the same. And so it is throughout Scripture, but it's not something that you would initially think of as the church's responsibility. As a church, we've had a food bank for years. We've got all sorts of social justice ministries. But one of the things that we were coming up again and again was, whilst we could support people in the short term and feed them day to day, actually they needed some practical longer term help.
Having seen in Kenya the power of a church running businesses and employing people and making a huge difference in the area, I was absolutely enthralled by it and came back to our church and was saying, this is brilliant, we should do something like this. And then particularly when I felt like God called me to be an employer, I was like, maybe we could do this together. How about we live out our vision, our values, let's go a step further and actually become employers. But the church said no. And that was really tough. It wasn't a priority for them at that time.
So we're not a church which is about a social gospel only. We are word and spirit with deeds and actions. We want to support the wider community in that way. But I believe that in order to see people's lives changed financially, to give people dignity, you have to go beyond just a food parcel. You have to provide mentoring and support to help someone thrive in life, and employment is a key part of that.
What I ended up doing was starting a gardening business. I didn't know anything about gardening. As far as I was concerned, why couldn't I make it work? So YouTube exists. There was a guy at our church who came alongside me that really experienced God's favours. But it was really never about the gardening, and I was always frustrated about the people that I couldn't employ. So how do we employ the single mum? How do we employ the former drug addict? I was also employing people that it probably wasn't the best job for them because I was their only option. And so this was a source of frustration again. As before, someone needs to do something about this. I found it really hard when the church didn't catch the vision that I was talking about back in 2007. 10 years later, I was going back to the church saying, here's a fresh vision of how we could do this together. And things had changed. The credit crunch had happened, the proliferation of food banks had grown, poverty had increased. So the need for the church to do more, I think, had increased. So because I felt like God had called me to be an employer and not a gardener, so therefore we laid that down and saying from the beginning, we're going to run multiple businesses that will create different jobs for different people. The way we currently employ people are through 3 different businesses. So we've got Radiant Cleaners, our commercial cleaning company, and immediately from the very beginning, we employed more people than the gardening business did, and a wider range of people. And so this was me going from doing in the gardening business to actually managing in the cleaning. So all of a sudden, if I was managing something, then it could grow faster. We then started an events business called Jubilee Events. That's marquee hire, so big tents that are going out for individual customers, for weddings or for corporate events. And then our third business that we started was Half the Story, which make biscuits, so cookies. And actually that again means in a bakery environment, we can employ a team of people, different people. And the joy of it has been to see that the common bit is we're going to be godly employers. We're taking the approach that if Jesus ran a company, what would it look like? So we could be a light in a fairly dark industry. We could employ people who otherwise wouldn't have a job. We could do life with them, and we could do the business well, and the church would actually be relevant in society because it's employing people. And whether you want to go to church on a Sunday or not, people wanted to work for us, so we employed them.
My opinion of the church was it was rather stuffy and old-fashioned, and there's people kneeling down and chanting and sprinkling holy water and things like that. It was something I didn't think that. I thought it was about things that you had to do, and I didn't think that I had it in me, so I kind of kept away from the places. There's food banks, there's charities that do this, that and the other, but that is doing things for you, whereas this job is enabling you to do things for yourself. A lot of us, we like fell off the ladder of life years and years and years ago, and then the stigma around for addiction, crime, things like that, there's no way forward for us, so we're lost, and there's only one way for us to go. To me, it's the way forward. I can't sing the praises high enough. I was lost, broken, without hope, given up for years, and Jesus saved me from that. And then this job came along and gave me a backbone and a foundation to carry on. To me, if Jesus designed a company, he'd do it with this model in mind. This would be what Jesus would do.
I lead the employee support for Grace Enterprises. We do holistic reviews for our employees. We offer mentors for each employee, and I network with other social action organisations in Nottingham. Anthony's the reason why we're doing it. People like him to say, no, we'll give you a chance, we'll give you an opportunity. And we won't just say, here it is, get on with it, but we'll walk with you, alongside you through it. It's seeing the individual employees over time grow in all different areas of their life, their self-confidence, feeling of purpose, and being able to see the value that having a job brings to them.
So our relationship with Grace Church is relational rather than legal. We're in the same building, we rent office space, we are based here, and we have We want to have trustees that are on both boards, but legally separate entities, but also members of the church, whether it's mentoring, coaching, getting involved, getting alongside our employees. Some of the things that a normal cleaning or marquee or biscuit business wouldn't be able to do. That is the kind of thing where the church can get involved and support us to help someone who struggled for a job. It's not as if us just giving them a job solves every problem. So actually being able to deal with some of the wider issues in life that maybe you can't step into as an employer, I think that's where the church is so helpful.
I love entrepreneurs in the church. Grace Enterprises really benefits Grace Church because it helps us to fulfill our vision to build a thriving community that reaches the city that we love. It helps us to get out there, to reach a whole group of people that would not have come into the church building if it wasn't for Grace Enterprises. I think in many ways we are quite alike. We're both fairly entrepreneurial and we both want to be creative in using the gifts and the talents that we have and other people have to proclaim Jesus. I think where we are different is Matt is more one-track minded. This is what I'm about, and it's an incredible thing to see. I am more pastorally wired and will focus on individuals and people and try and support those people and help them to thrive. Matt, in the case of employability, is the one with a baton in the hand charging forward and helping the whole church grow in this area.
The church has always been and should always be good at doing things like soup runs, doing relief work, night shelters, food parcels. And the church has always been good at things like policy, so the abolition of slavery and other setting the laws, huge influence on society. But in the middle, I'd argue that there's a really important to do the development work, to actually see people go from being helped with the immediate and actually being helped longer term, given opportunities to have hope, purpose, dignity. And we found that people would be challenged in their preconceptions about what a church is and what a church does. What kind of church runs a business? What kind of church would run a business that would employ someone like me who doesn't believe it? But actually being able to practically demonstrate Jesus' love for everyone, whether they believe in him or not, has been a really important demonstration for us of this is our faith worked out. And it causes people to ask questions. God is the great entrepreneur, making stuff out of nothing. If we could channel that, why don't we use the business skills? Why don't we use those entrepreneurial skills to actually be able to create scalable and sustainable things rather than asking for more resources to give? It's so much better to be able to give people the dignity of working and helping people to help themselves. And that's what I'd love to see the church do more of that.